Linda Lombardo?
Well, that's the ongoing question, right? Because I continue to evolve. I started out as a performer, an actor. Circumstances had me go into the corporate world, where I spent 20 something years, front of the room facilitator, doing management and leadership development, doing customer service work. So, using my performing skills in front of a room, just in a very different way. And then when I decided that it was time to retire from the corporate world, the question was, what's next? What do I want to do? And forest bathing, life coaching, all of these came to me as just the next evolution of what I had been doing, is really helping to raise awareness for people, but about something different, about nature, which is to me, such a vital topic, especially today when so many people are expressing a fear of nature or hesitation to be with nature. It's been 6 years since I was certified through the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and I've led I want to say about 230 something walks in that time, and some of those are private walks, some of them are for my coaching clients. Some are public walks or for organizations or groups. And so I'm constantly evolving the walks I lead based on the season, based on the location, and based on the people or the person who've asked me to lead the walk. So I think that's who I am. I mean, I'm a dreamer, I'm creative. My mind loves to play in the questions. I don't necessarily need the answers. I just love the questions. And I think that's about it.
I'm assuming a lot of the people who come to you are nature lovers, but I'm sure you probably have clients who are more urban and they might feel, a bit alien in nature.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can almost tell who has been coerced into coming on a walk by whoever else is with them. And I've even asked the question, raise your hand if someone kind of dragged you here or coerced you into coming. And people will laugh a little bit, kind of embarrassed, but they'll raise their hands. And so it's important for me to explain that nature is going to give each and every person what they need. And their engagement with the invitations that I offer is totally up to them. They don't get to do it wrong. They don't get to be wrong about how they engage with nature, as long as they do engage in some way. And that might just mean standing and looking at a tree rather than someone who's so totally in and they're going to just throw themselves in the tree or hug the tree. Someone might say, no, I don't know if I want to touch a tree, but I can stand here, I can look at it, I can walk around it, I can breathe with it maybe a little bit. It's not prescriptive. And that's a beautiful thing because everybody feels they're engaging at their own level. So for those who have never done it before, aren't sure they ever want to do it again, there's a sense of relief that they get to choose, that I'm not going to make them do anything.
Forest therapy is based on a Japanese practice philosophy. Are you also using indigenous philosophy?
I use a lot of different philosophies. I'm not Japanese. I have no indigenous roots. And so I'm very respectful of how I I weave all these different cultures and philosophies in. I will always acknowledge the land we're on and whose land it was, and have people touch the ground, and we talk about the history of that land, and that the land holds the joys, the sorrows, whatever was happening at the time, because I want people to really think of the earth as more than just the ground on which they walk. There's history there, and when we walk today, we're creating a legacy for future generations that might stand in the same place and wonder the same thing about us. I will, if I'm in a place to honor the four directions. There's one place where I walk where they have a fire pit, and the benches around the fire pit are the colors of the four directions. So it is perfect to invite them in, to honor them, to see where people sat, and then have them notice that even sitting on a bench, there's a consciousness, even if, or maybe an unconsciousness about what color they chose to sit on. And it might be winter, it might be spring, it may be a bear or a deer that is the sacred animal or the spirit animal. And so I try to bring that in when I can, but without appropriating it in a way, always honoring the culture that it came from.
How do you make the selection?
People come to me, if it's a public walk, everybody is welcome. I try to keep certain ages. When I'm doing my public walks, I try to do 16 and up, because a lot of the invitations wouldn't be appropriate for younger children. And yet I also do walks for school-age children. Those would be different than a walk that I might do for ages 16 and up, or for adults. We go in different directions, and we approach the invitations differently. And even some of the tools or the props that I bring with me might be very different. For an adult group, I make these handmade paper scrolls, and they may have self-care quotes. They may have law of attraction quotes, or right now I'm doing winter quotes, talking about the deep rest of winter and how all other beings are hibernating, and we're out there going crazy because this is a holiday season. But for children, they may join hands and go from tree to tree and send messages. And so I'm teaching them a little bit about how all these trees are connected as well. And I might not do that with adults. So it's always going to be something different, always evolving based on my audience. But anyone can come. I want more people to experience it. I really don't want to limit.
Paintings or illustrations on your website, and just like the one behind you, are you doing them?
This one here?
Yeah.
No, this is art. Someone drew that, and I just fell in love with it. It's a beautiful owl in a forest, and very, very dramatic, very mysterious. I'm drawn to the art of Jeannie Tomanek, who does this every woman figure, and she just has this beautiful ethereal art that she does. Sometimes on a scroll, I may bring something like that in, or a poem. Often I stamp. I have a lot of wildlife stamps, so there could be an owl, or there could be a deer, or a bear, or an acorn on a scroll. Just, and I might say to them, take a look at this as a spirit animal for yourself. You chose this scroll. You chose, and whatever the nurturing saying is. But take a look and see, is a deer a spirit animal for you? How can you take what we've done on this walk and introduce it into your daily life? Because the idea really is to take the awareness, to take the presencing and the grounding that we do, and not make it separate from our lives. I went forest bathing today, check. And now I'm just going to go back to my life and pretend that didn't happen. Incorporating something from the walk into our daily lives helps bring us into presence, makes us more grounded in our daily lives. And I think that's what it's really all about.
How do you deal with these people who are so anchored into politics and into all the events of everyday lives?
What an interesting question, because I don't know that I've ever had politics come in to a walk. And having said that, the exception would be how we perceive nature, our wanting to care for or conserve this beautiful natural world around us. There was an article recently called Biophobia, right? So the fear of nature. And what's happening with children, I think as well as adults, is that if we are fearful of going in nature, if we don't include nature as part of our daily lives, then the conservation of nature really feels like it has no relevance to us. It has no consequence for us. And entire species can go extinct, and we're like, well, my life didn't change, so I'm not worried about that. But from a political standpoint, I don't ever really have it come up. I will say things sometimes when I'm talking about the benefits of forest bathing, and I might say, I don't know if anybody here is stressed like me. And of course, then everybody laughs because everybody's stressed in some way about something. But this is a way to just let it all go, to leave it all behind, even if it's just for a short period of time. Connect with nature, connect with self, and connect with others. And people seem to form this beautiful community by the end of a walk. It's as if it doesn't matter politically who believes what or who's taking a stand for what. We've all had an experience in nature together, and that seems to bring us together in a very different way, and maybe a way that I hope if you can take that into the world, maybe you'll be able to do some of that in your own life as well, beyond forest bathing.
Do you also do breathing exercises, mindfulness?
There's a really fine line between it all. I often start with breath. I make complete a presencing invitation with a breath to, in and out. Let's complete it. We breathe in reciprocity with the trees. We greet our hosts, the trees, the plants. And when we breathe out, we're supplying them with carbon dioxide. And trees and plants breathe as well, even though they breathe a little differently than we do. And when they breathe out, they're breathing out oxygen, which when we inhale, we're taking that in. So to stop and take a breath with a tree is almost like if you've gone to somebody's house, you're going to say hello to the host. You're going to thank them for having you there. And breathing in reciprocity with the trees is like welcoming, saying thank you to your host for having you there. And the tree gets to respond because the tree is naturally breathing in and out. So we'll do some of that. We might see how our breath impacts us in cold weather. When when it's really cold out and you can see your breath. Can you warm a leaf? Can you watch your breath and see how far it travels? And really simple things, really easy things that will not bring somebody into their head. No, I don't want them thinking, well, how the heck can I do this? What am I going to do here? I want them to just from here say, oh yeah, let me just breathe and see how far my breath travels, or I can watch it travel. Or can I warm the ice crystals on this leaf with my breath? And what is it like to be in relationship with that leaf or the air at this time? So lots of breathing, lots of visualization. If I'm going to do a tree connection, I will have people, again, breathing, going, inhaling up from the earth, exhaling back down to the earth, growing roots, maybe even whispering their own name down into their roots, and see if a tree responds. Is there a tree that says, yes, I want to talk to you, or yes, I want to spend time with you? And I did have a man once, and I think he was being a little sarcastic or just teasing me. And he said, well, what if I go up to a tree and the tree says, go away, I don't want to talk to you? And I said, well, then go find another tree. It was just that simple. It's because sometimes you do go up to a tree and it's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think this is the tree I want to talk to right now. And that energy could be coming from the tree as well as coming from you. Anything is possible. You just don't know.
Some people might think that doing forest therapy requires rich imagination, and they might feel shy to join a group because they feel that they don't have that kind of imagination. Is that true?
Well, the way that I promote it is that we're going to wander slowly. We're going to notice what's around us. We may make some connections with plants and trees in ways that are different than you would if you were simply walking through a park or a forest or an arboretum. But I never really try to make it sound as if this is going to take a lot of creativity, because it doesn't. I might say, notice the moss on the tree, or find a beginning or an ending somewhere in this part of the park or the forest. And people are free to look, to notice. They might not feel it resonates for them, so maybe they don't, but they notice something else. And or they just get to spend some peaceful time. So there's never any pressure to say, you have to come into this with a certain set of skills. It's for everyone to really find their place with nature and know that we are connected, because we are nature. We've just stepped away. The progress, and I air quote progress, because progress has taken us away from a lot of who we are. We are human animals, right? And we have a lot of the same instincts that the more than human world has. And often we go against them because we're trying to get somewhere, we're trying to be productive. Forest bathing is a chance to, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter who you are. Just being with nature it's going to find something that you need and offer it to you. And it might not offer that to anybody else on the walk.
I'm assuming that the walks are somehow conditioned by the weather.
Well, weather it's subjective. Uh, I've had some beautiful walks in fog and in a light rain and newly fallen snow. I walk year round, 12 months out of the year. And so, if the temperatures go dangerously cold, then that might be a time where either I say we're going to do a shorter walk or we're going to reschedule the walk. I do bring hand warmers, and I'll bring toe warmers with me if it's very, very cold. But I do watch the weather a lot, because I never want anyone to endanger themselves outdoors. If it's really, really hot, sometimes I offer the walks earlier in the morning, just knowing that the weather's going to be hotter, or later in the afternoon. And so sometimes, I might be walking at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. Other times the walk begins at 2 o'clock. And it's really based on what I know that the weather is going to be, or what I know the temperature is going to be. But there's never a walk in any time where it could be dangerous, not in high winds, no thunder or lightning. If that happens, I'm fortunate enough that I have relationships with a lot of the preserves and arboretums where I lead walks, and they will offer me an indoor space if for any reason we need to escape from the outdoors, or if we need to start indoors and know that it's going to clear in a little bit. So having a shelter is really important too. But I never take chances. I'd rather lose people on a walk, and so they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it next weekend," than take them out and have them, be in danger, or in unsafe conditions.
You are also a teacher.
Well, yes and no. I consider myself a facilitator or an educator. I never taught in a school, but I am a per diem educator for this wonderful nature center here called Sweetbriar Nature Center. And I work with a lot of the veterans at the VA hospital, a lot of school children, senior citizens, and I introduce wildlife, or we may take walks on a trail. And it's a little less forest bathing, and I always manage to bring something in that has that forest bathing feeling to it. But after all the years facilitating in a corporate environment, it really feels rewarding to work with children in nature, or to work with veterans who their eyes light up when they see an animal, one of our ambassador animals come in. And for me, that's just another facet of my connection with nature, another way for me to make nature personal for people.
People who come to you, are they people who live with certain afflictions or just people who want to relax?
It's both. It's both. I have had people who are sight challenged, hearing challenged. I've done walks where maybe one individual might be using a wheelchair. And depending on the location, as long as if I know that in advance, I can design my route, my path, to be sure that this person is going to be able to have the same kind of experience, but in their own way. I know when I had someone who was sight impaired, I suddenly became aware how often, like I'll say, what are you noticing? And for me and for others, often that has to do with our sight. What are you noticing? You know, well, I noticed the green of the trees, or I'm noticing that there's birds moving around. And noticing became something quite different because this young man noticed so much, but noticed texture, noticed sound. And it was really very fascinating for me. He was teaching me, basically, how noticing is really about all our senses. It's not just what are you seeing.
Would it be safe to say that forest therapy helps us enhance, get in touch with our senses and deepen them?
Absolutely. It's really all about slowing down and noticing. There's a beautiful invitation called What's in Motion When It Isn't Me? Because if I'm in motion, I'm not noticing anything else moving around me. I'm this, I'm the one in motion. But if I slow down, even stop and just look around, I can see all sorts of things happening around me. I can see bees on flowers. I can see the wind moving the leaves in the trees. There might be some insects crossing the path, or maybe a fallen log, even though I didn't watch it fall. It's clear that something happened. There was movement. And this log has now impacted the ground around it. And if I'm really in a hurry, if I'm just thinking about where my destination is, I don't pay any attention to that. Forest bathing really focuses on the liminal space, the space in between. And we don't often pay attention to where our feet are, where our bodies are. Our minds are taking us in some other direction. And so it's very much about opening all the senses, touching things. When I ask people to put their hands on the ground, I say, when was the last time you touched grass, or you touched dirt or the gravel? And most people say they can't even remember the last time they put their hands on the earth. So it's starting very basic, with basic senses, and then letting those senses kind of open up and deepen, because we have more than 5 senses, and if we can at least get to the first 5, then we begin to open up to some of the others that we have.
How do you deal with resistance?
I really honestly have never had tension between people. So here's a very interesting thing. What I might perceive as resistance might not be resistance at all. And what I've learned after 230 something walks is if I'm looking at someone and I'm perceiving that they're not really participating, they're not really enjoying, often during an invitation, I might walk up to them and say, I'm curious, what are you noticing? And I get the most remarkable answers from this person who I had already started to judge as maybe not being into it, can't wait to leave. They're not really doing anything I'm inviting them to do, but they're doing it their own way. So as guides, we have to be careful that we're not making up stories. about our participants. And the beauty of these groups is in invitations. If you engage with some of them, you get to learn a little bit more about them. A guide doesn't stand back and say, go connect with a tree, and then not connect themselves, or not find some way to let the participants know that you're there if needed. Or that took some time. That took some time for me to really get comfortable with, because I didn't want to intrude on people's time with nature. And at the same time, I think they really seem to appreciate having a conversation with me, even if it's brief, just a couple of words about what they're noticing or where they are in the moment. And so there really isn't that resistance. There really isn't any tension. I think the people who come are curious enough to really give it a try and want to experiment with their own connection with nature.
Are people bringing their own quotes, or you are bringing them?
I create scrolls on handmade paper, and I'll put some, right now, winter is, we're getting to the solstice and the winter is upon us. And so just quotes about the idea that it's okay to rest, that nature knows, the trees send their energy into their roots to, waiting for spring. Acorns have fallen and may sprout in spring. Lots of different kinds of quotes. And I don't ask people to bring anything except to bring themselves and to be open to having a connection with nature. And so they get to read those quotes. Sometimes when we have tea at the end, I will share the quotes then. Other times I might invite them to go sit, do a sit spot, which simply means find a spot, stand, sit down, and just notice what's around you. But sometimes that quote can help, to open a scroll, sit down, and just let that thought or that quote wash over them or be part of the experience that they're having. It's a fun thing to do. I love to do them. Sometimes I put experiential scavenger hunts on scrolls, and I'll say, go find one, find them all, do whatever feels right for you. And then I might give them a time frame, or I'll call them back with my forest flute, and then we'll talk about what we noticed.
It's the holiday season.
Mm.
As we're getting closer to the holidays, people are getting more excited, but some of them are getting also more stressed.
Yes. Well, I alluded to this earlier, talking about how all the more than human creatures are starting to go into this deep rest and storing for winter, and humans are just scurrying all over the place, trying, to get all their holiday preparations done, or maybe they're traveling at this time of the year, so they've got to make travel plans, or they're packing, or this is always a highly stressful time, not for everyone, but it certainly could be an exciting time as well, as you said. And being grounded in the natural world, noticing how nature is handling this holiday season is so important, because if we can take some of that back with us and incorporate it, it really helps us put some of that stress in perspective. And in the end, there is only so much we can control. And a lot of stress comes from the fact that there are things we feel we need to control, or we need to get done. And in the end, it's always okay. It always happens. So you get to choose. Do you want to make this a really stressful time? Or do you want to make this a pleasant, relaxing time? Because it's going to get done no matter what. It's just how you choose to be with it. Just this idea at this time of the year and going into the winter, that nature, at least here where I live, nature has 4 seasons, not everywhere. and to know nature in all its seasons at every time of the year, I think is one of the most beautiful things that we can do. So we're often very fair weather friends when it comes to nature. If it's sunny out, if it feels nice, we go out. If it doesn't, we say, you know what, I'm just going to stay in, or I'm going to do something else. But it's really lovely and grounding to get to know nature. Maybe get to make friends with one tree and keep visiting that same tree and see how it changes over the years, just as we're always changing. So I think our connection with nature can be deeper than a 2-hour forest therapy experience. But the forest therapy experience is a great way to begin to discover what does nature mean to you and how can you create that deeper connection. One of my favorite poems is a Mary Oliver poem, and I don't know it all by heart, but it begins with, I usually go into the woods alone because my friends are all talkers, and they don't see sitting on a sand dune and watching an animal walk by, and they don't see that as something that has value. And it ends with the quote, if I've ever gone on a walk with you, I must love you very much. And I read that often at the end of my walks because I want the forest bathers to know how much they've impacted me, that it's been a healing time for me to be with them. Even if they come up to me afterwards and say, oh, this was so healing, this was so wonderful, I loved how you just made it so easy for me. I want them to know they're healing me at the same time. If nature's healing them, I'm excited for that. But they need to know that they're also healing me, and I feel grounded after I've led that walk. So that's a poem I do like to read. I also like the Thich Nhat Hanh quote. He said that we plant, as humans, we plant a lot of anxiety and anger and sorrow on the earth with our footsteps, and that we really should walk as if our feet are kissing the earth, planting peace and kindness and compassion. So early on, we may walk from here to there as if our feet are kissing the earth, or at least noticing, what does it feel like to touch the earth with your feet? How could you touch the earth maybe differently than you usually do? Those are two that I rely on a lot because I just think they're so powerful and everyone seems to appreciate them.